Friday morning was a nice sunny day in August with only a few clouds scattered across the sky. Peter and Sarah finished putting a few items into their car for the trip to Wharton. As they stood outside of the open car doors ready to get in, Peter asked, "Can you think of anything else to take with us?" "No, we are just going there for the day. So there really isn't too much to forget. As long as we have our credit cards, we should be okay," she replied as she opened the passenger door to get into the car. "Okay, let's get going. Morning rush hour should be over now, so the traffic shouldn't be too bad," he said. He opened his door as well. They got into the car, and he started it up. He backed the sedan out of the apartment carport and pulled the car onto the street. After driving on a few city streets, they made it to the highway and headed west, towards Lansing. "At least it's a nice day out today, so I won't have to check the place out in the rain," she said. "Yes, I agree about it being nice. I picture Wharton being a pleasant little town to walk around. So you should be fine while I'm meeting with Carl," he replied. "Hopefully, it'll be enough to keep me occupied for during your meeting," she said. "Oh, there should be several shops downtown that you can check out, and maybe a park or something too," he added, since he was a bit concerned that she didn't seem to share his excitement for Wharton. "Okay, I'll look at this with an open mind." "It should be fine," she replied. "Do you want to put on the radio or something?" she asked, wanting to change the subject. "Sure, this trip will take an hour or so we might as well relax a bit and enjoy the ride," he said as he pushed the button to turn on the radio. The preset station still had a good signal, so he just leaves it there. "Is this station okay with you?" he asked. "Yes, it's fine. Thanks, sweetie," she said as she gazed out the side window as they passed by buildings, which were getting fewer, and more trees and open areas appeared. Later, they were on a smaller highway heading south. "Is this our road coming up here?" Sarah asked. Peter looked at the sign they were approaching, and when he was able to read it, he said, "Yeah, this is the road to Wharton." He turned the car left at the crossroad, and continued for just a few miles before they passed another sign stating, "Welcome to Wharton." "Okay, now I just need to find Main Street and the WHN office," he said as he scanned signs looking for Main Street. She looks at a street sign as they pass by it, and said, "It looks like this is Main Street." "Oh, that was easy," he said. "That looks the downtown area up ahead. Let me know if you see a WHN sign," he replied. "It's blue, right?" she asked. "That's correct," he said. "Well, this town does look nice and peaceful at least," she commented as they continued driving down Main Street. "Hey, there it is on the left, WHN Realty. It looks like there is some parking at the side of the building too," she noticed. He turned the car left into the lot of the relatively small two-story brick office building, which was possibly an old store at one time. The building looked old, but well-maintained. He parked in the small lot along the side, and they got out of the car. He stretched his arms a bit. "Are you ready to go in?" he asked. "Oh, that's right, we are going to lunch first," she remembered as she started toward the building. The two of them walked around to the front of the building. They passed the large plate glass window, which had the WHN sign in it as well as some advertisements for some local houses for sale. He pushed the door open, and there was a set of bells that rang from the movement of the door to announce their entrance. As they stepped into the office, their eyes had to adjust to the change in brightness, since the interior lights could not match the brilliant sun outside. They could see someone standing up from one of foot-like desks facing the front of the building. Looking closer, they realized it was a man, probably in his late 40s. He was wearing a tie and a button-down blue shirt. He walked toward them and asked, "I'm guessing you are Peter and Sarah?" "Why yes, and you must be Carl," Peter replied as he extended his hand. "That's me. I've been looking forward to meeting you. I had an agent move away about a month ago, and I could use some experienced help around here, Carl replied, shaking Peter's hand. Well, hopefully this will work out for everyone. I just feel more at ease in smaller towns, Peter commented. And what do you think of Wharton so far, Sarah? Carl asked. Actually, as we were driving into town, I mentioned to Peter that this seems like a nice and peaceful town, Sarah replied. Did you grow up in a small town as well, Sarah? Carl asked her. Actually, I grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan. So I'm not really from a small town, but so far this does seem like a very nice place, Sarah replied. Well, are you too hungry? Carl asked. They looked at each other, and then back at Carl. Peter replied, yes, we're ready for lunch. Sarah nods her head as he replied. Do you have a place in mind? Peter asked. Sure do. I thought we would go to the Chiltern River Inn. It is one of the nicer restaurants around here, Carl offered. Well, that sounds quite good to me. How about you, Sarah? That would be fine with me, too. Let's go, she said. You should probably keep this place in mind, Peter, if you need to wine and dine potential clients, you know, Carl said as he used his hands to gesture Peter and Sarah toward the front door. We can either take my car, or we can walk. It really isn't too far, even for an out-of-shape guy like me. That's one of the nice things about being in a small town, Carl reminds them. Sarah, are you okay with walking? It is a nice day, and we can see some more of the town, Peter asked as they approached the front door. It is nice out. Let's go for a walk, she replied. Carl pulled the door open and the bells rang again. He held the door open for Sarah and Peter, allowing them to walk back out onto the sidewalk. Before he shut the door, he rotated the open sign to show closed on the door. He then shuts the door, and removed his keys from his pocket to lock the door, while Peter and Sarah waited behind him. Carl pointed east down Main Street, and said, the restaurant is down this way. Is it on Main Street, Carl? Sarah asked. No, it is about a block off of Main Street on 3rd Avenue, Carl replied as they began walking on sidewalk along Main Street. Peter and Sarah look at the businesses and homes along the way as they continue to walk. It looks like many of the houses have been around for a while, Peter commented. Yes, the town was settled in the mid-1800s, and many of the Victorian-style houses are from that era into the early 1900s. There are newer houses built further from the center of town, and a few to replace ones that couldn't be saved, Carl replied. They walked about 2 blocks east on Main Street and reached 3rd Avenue. Okay, we go north here, Carl said as he pointed north. They continued along on the 3rd Avenue sidewalk. Ahead of them they could see a bridge. Is that the Chiltern River up ahead? Peter asked. Yes, and that is the Chiltern River Inn on the left and on the far side of the river, Carl replied. Oh, I see it. The trees obscure it a bit, but it does look nice. Hey, it has a deck too, Sarah noticed. It doesn't look too crowded yet, so we should be able to get a table on the deck, if you would like, Carl offered. I would enjoy that, Carl, Sarah replied. They reached the bridge and walked along the raised sidewalk on the left side. Below them, they could see the river passing underneath. The river was about 20 feet below them, and about 35 feet wide that time of year. On the other side of the bridge they walked around to the front door of the inn. Carl opened the front door and held it while Sarah and Peter passed through into the restaurant. Carl followed and released the door. They approached the stand where the hostess was waiting. She asked, Hi Carl, will it just be the 3 of you today? Yes Judy, just 3 of us, Carl replied. Okay, let me get the menus. Would you like to sit on the deck? Judy asked. Hey, I didn't even have to ask today. Yes, we would. Thank you, Judy, Carl replied. Just follow me, Judy said as she began leading the 3 of them to their table on the deck. They followed Judy through the inside portion of the restaurant, toward a pair of screen doors. One door opened outward and the other inward. The glass exterior doors were propped out of the way. She pushed the right door open and held it for the three to pass by onto the deck. "Thank you, Judy," Carl said as he proceeded onto the deck. She then led them to a round table near the railing with 4 chairs around it under an umbrella in the center. She placed the menus in front of each setting, and then said, "Steve will be your waiter today. He should be here in a minute. Enjoy your lunch." "Oh, we will. Thanks again, Judy," Carl said as he and the others took their seats around the table. They each picked up the menus and began reading. There was a very slight breeze helping to make the temperature comfortable. "This is very nice choice for lunch, Carl. Do you have any recommendations?" Sarah asked. "Well, I'm sure everything is good here, but if I had to choose something for lunch it would probably be the baked pickerel. It has a very nice blend of spices that make it pretty much melt in your mouth," Carl replied. "Wow, that sounds delicious." "I think I'll try that," Sarah said. "It sounds good to me as well." "I'll have to give it a try, too," Peter added. "Well, that should make the order easy at least," Carl said. They each set down the menus to alert the waiter that they were ready. Steve, the waiter, approached their table and said, "Good morning, Carl. Who are your guests today?" "Hello, Steve. This is Peter and Sarah Corbin. Peter is thinking of moving here to join me in the real estate office." "Hello, Peter and Sarah. I hope that you'll enjoy your visit enough to move here. Carl would be a great person to work with," Steve said to greet them. "Why, thank you, Steve. You must be buttering me up for a big tip," Carl replied with a smile. "Okay, so you could see through that. Well, can I at least get you started with something to drink?" Steve asked. "Sure, Steve, I'll have my usual martini." "Peter and Sarah, I highly recommend the martinis here. They are quite smooth," Carl suggests. "Well, I have not really tried martinis that often, but I suppose I could give one a try." "How about you, Sarah?" Peter asked. "Oh, I think I will have to pass for now. I'm just not ready for something that's strong yet. I think I will have a glass of Zinfandel instead," Sarah replied. "Okay, 2 martinis and 1 Zinfandel," he said as he wrote on his pad. "Oh, I think we are ready to order too, Steve," Carl said. "Sure, who would like to start?" Steve asked as he held his pen ready to record the orders. "Well, I think I convinced them to get the baked pickerel. So to make it easy, just put an order in for 3 baked pickerel specials," Carl replied. "Okay, that will make it easy. Would you like mashed or baked potato with your pickerel?" Steve asked after turning toward Sarah. "Baked will be fine, me. Just have the margarine on the side," she replied. "Would you like a Caesar or house salad?" Steve asked. "I'll have the house salad with vinaigrette dressing," Sarah replied. "Okay, thank you. What type of potato would you like, sir?" Steve asked Peter. "I'll have a baked potato, with sour cream on the side, and a house salad with ranch dressing," Peter replied. "Okay, thank you. And what type of potato, Carl?" Steve asked. "I try the mashed potatoes, and I'll skip the salad for today," Carl replied. "Okay, thank you. I'll put your order in and I'll bring you the drinks right away." "Here, let me take your menus," Steve said as he took each of their menus and started to head back through the screen door back into the restaurant. Sarah and Peter gazed over the side of the railing at the river below, which was flowing by at a lazy pace. The midday sun glistened off the gentle ripples in the river. "Wow, this is relaxing. Thanks again for bringing us here, Carl," Sarah commented. "Like I said, this is a nice place for making a good impression on out-of-town guests," Carl replied. "Good point, I'll have to remember that for my clients," Peter replied. "So you are taking the transfer here very seriously then?" Carl asked. "Yes, I am. I feel comfortable here already. The job in Farmington allows me to make good commissions, but I just get stressed out with the pace of it sometimes. I don't seem to have enough time for myself. You know, people calling in the evening all the time, Peter replied. Well, you do realize the sales volume here will be a fair amount less than in Farmington, Peter? Carl asked. That's fine with me. As long as I can make enough to be comfortable, I will be fine, Peter replied. I plan on looking for a job here as well, Sarah adds. What type of job would you be interested in, Sarah? Carl asked. Oh, I have experience in retail management now. I do have a degree in economics from Eastern Michigan too, Sarah replied. Well, I do have plenty of contacts in town. If you do end up here, I can make a few calls and see if I can help find you something, Carl offers. Wow, that would be very nice and helpful, Carl. I am starting to like this place as well, Sarah replied. Steve approached their table with a tray full of drinks. He set the tray on the edge of the table and distributed the drinks. Here's your Zinfandel, Steve said as he set the wine glass in front of Sarah. Here's your martini, sir, he said as he placed the martini in front of Peter. Thank you, Peter said. And here is your martini, Carl, he said as he put the other martini in front of Carl. Thank you, Steve, Carl said. I'll leave a basket of some fresh bread too, Steve said as he laid a basket in the middle of the table. I'll be back soon with your salads, and the pickerel will be out later, Steve said as he turned and went back inside of the restaurant with the tray. Peter took a sip of his martini and said, Hey, this does taste smooth. Thanks for the recommendation, Carl. I thought you would appreciate it, Carl said. Sarah took a sip of wine and tilted her head back to stretch her neck. If we do move here, are there some apartments we could rent in the area? Peter asked before he took another sip of his martini. Let's see, there are a few small apartment complexes in town. I take it you live in an apartment now? Carl asked as he took a sip of his martini. Yes, we have a single-bedroom apartment in Farmington, Peter replied. First, one thing I have to ask is if you think you are ready to buy a house, instead of renting another apartment. Peter looked at Sarah, and replied, Well, I suppose it's something we could consider, if it was the right house and within our budget. We have managed to save some money for a down payment. That's very good. Maybe we could review a couple listings after lunch here. No rush or anything, but we should be able to find something better than an apartment, Carl offered. That actually sounds like a good idea, Carl, Peter said as he looked toward Sarah for concurrence. He then continued, We will do that after lunch. Okay, that will be great. Oh, it looks like your salads are coming now, Carl said as Steve approached the table with 2 salads on a tray. Standing alongside the table, he placed the first one in front of Sarah, and the next in front of Peter. Did you need anything, Carl? Steve asked. No, I'm all set, Steve. I'll just have some bread and enjoy the martini for now. Thank you, Carl said. Sure, Carl, I'll return in a bit with your lunches in a few minutes, Steve said before he went back inside of the restaurant. Thanks, both Carl and Peter reply at the same time. I would like to check out some of the local shops this afternoon sometime as well as looking for a possible house, Sarah said as she picked up her fork to begin eating her salad. Well, how about Peter and I meeting at the office first after lunch? Then when you are finished looking at the shops, you can stop by and we'll look at the house listings, Carl suggested as he reached for a slice of bread. That would be fine with me. How about you, Peter? Sarah asked. Sure, Carl and I can go over the job details first and you can get to know the town a little better, Peter replied as he prepared to eat his salad. After Sarah took a bit of her salad and finishes chewing, she said, The salad is very fresh. Mine tastes very good too, Peter adds. Well, just enjoy your meal you two. We are not on a schedule for this afternoon, Carl reminded them as he used a knife to add some butter to his slice of bread. They each continued eating their salad or bread. After each of them finished with their meal, Steve had removed a few empty plates and left the bill on the table. He returned inside with the tray of dishes. "I'll get this," Carl said as he took the bill from the edge of the table. He opened up the folding holder and set it in front of him. He retrieved his wallet from his back pocket. He removed a credit card, placed it in the bill holder, and placed it near the edge of the table. "Well, how was your meal?" Carl asked. "The pickerel was excellent." "I will have to try that again sometime," Peter replied. "Yes, it was very good, and as you said, it seemed to melt in my mouth," Sarah added. "I'm glad you liked it, though it was a pretty safe bet," Carl said. "Did you like the martini, Peter?" Carl asked. "Yes, I did like it, Carl. Thanks for recommending it, though I'm glad I just had one for now. I think it would affect how much I remember when I meet with you this afternoon," Peter replied. "Ha, don't worry, I won't be giving you any big test or anything," Carl said with a smile. "That's a relief," Peter said while smiling. Steve returned to their table, removed the bill holder, and said, "I'll be back in a minute with your card and the receipt." "Carl, thanks, Steve," Carl replied as Steve took the bill into the restaurant. "Well, hopefully you two got enough to eat," Carl said. "Oh, I likely will not need a big dinner tonight." "Thanks so much, Carl," Peter replied. "Same for me too, I'm stuffed," Sarah added. Steve returned to the table with the bill folder. He placed it on the edge of the table by Carl, and said, "Here you go, Carl, as usual, just sign the top copy and you can keep the other copies." He turned to Peter and Sarah, and said, "I hope you two enjoy your visit in Wharton and that I will see you in here again. You very likely will see us again soon." "Thank you," Peter replied. "Well, all right, you take care," Steve said as he turns and again returned to the restaurant. Carl took a moment to fill out the credit card receipt and sign it. He returned his credit card to his wallet, retained his copy of the bill and stuffed it into a front pocket. Carl then asked, "Are you ready to head back now?" "I'm ready." "Are you ready to go exploring, sweetie?" Peter asked. "Sure, let's go," Sarah replied as she started to get up from the table along with the others. They walked toward the door which led back inside the restaurant. Carl reached the door first and held it for Sarah and Peter. They passed through into the main part of the restaurant and continued through the front door to the outside. While walking around the building toward the bridge, Carl said, "Let's head back to Main Street. I'll point out where you can go to check out some of the local shops, Sarah." "Okay, just point me in the general direction and I should be fine," Sarah replied as they began crossing the bridge on the way to Main Street. When they three of them reached Main Street, Carl stopped and informed Sarah, "Well, Sarah, there are several nice stores on both sides of this street. There's a nice women's clothing store on the other side about a block down, as well as some other specialty stores. I guess I'll head across the street then." "When do you and Peter expect to be done at the office?" Sarah asked. "Oh, it should take us an hour or so, but just take your time and enjoy the town," Carl replied. "Okay, I'll see you two in an hour or so back at the real estate office," Sarah said. "Take care, sweetie, I'll see you later," Peter said, as Sarah began turning to cross the street. "Well, Peter, let's head to the office so we can go over more details about this position," Carl said as he extended his hand to point down the street toward the office. They started making their way to the office. When they reached the office, Carl opened the door. As before, the bell rang as it opened into the room. Carl held the door for Peter. As soon as Peter entered the office, he noticed a woman sitting at one of the desks. Peter estimated that she could be in her early 50s or so, though he would admit that he was a poor judge of age. She looked up from her desk and smiled. She then said, "You must be Peter Corbin, I'm Phyllis Carlton." Carl said that you would be visiting this afternoon. Yes, I am Peter. It's nice to meet you, Phyllis, Peter said as he approached Phyllis' desk. I must have missed you earlier, since I was out earlier showing a house, Phyllis added. Sorry about that, Peter. I did forget to mention that Phyllis works in the office with me too. That's it for realtors, though. It is just us two now, unless you see fit to join us too, Carl responded. You forgot about me, huh? Phyllis replied, smiling wryly at Carl. Oh, I couldn't forget about you, Phyllis. I just wanted to break it to him gently, Carl replied as he returned a smile back toward Phyllis. Okay, smart ass. Hopefully, he will treat me with some respect to make up for it, Phyllis replied. I will try, Phyllis, Peter offered with a slight smile. Okay, Peter, let's go sit down at my desk before we get in any more trouble, Carl suggested. Sure. Again, it's been nice meeting you, Phyllis, Peter commented. Peter and Carl walked over to Carl's desk. Carl sat behind the desk and Peter used one of the two chairs in front of it. Carl found a folder on his desk and opened it. He removed the transfer form that Peter had filled out several months ago. Okay, Peter, let's review this information, Carl said as he quickly scanned the form. It said here that you have been with WHS in Farmington for about 3 years now, Carl continued. Yes, that is correct, Peter replied. And the main reason for your wanting to transfer is to move to a smaller town, Carl said. Yeah, while I have been making good money in Farmington, I just have been feeling stressed out and not really as happy as I feel I could be. The money is not the most important thing for me now, Peter responded. Okay, just to make sure of this again, you do realize that since the sales here will be at a lower volume and that your overall sales commissions will be less, Carl asked. That I do understand, and I have no problem with it, Carl, Peter answered. Great, Peter. What's your overall impression so far? Carl asked. Oh, I believe I am ready to make the change, if that is okay with you. I am ready to go over more specific details of how you run this office, Peter replied. Peter glanced over at Phyllis and saw her smiling in agreement. Well, that was easy enough. I wish more of my sales would be that easy, Carl said with a smile. Both you and me, Carl, Peter said, smiling back at Carl. Well, first we should be able to set you up at either of the back 2 desks here. Do you have a preference on which? Carl asked as he turned to look at the desks behind him. Oh, it shouldn't matter, Peter replied. Well, how about the one behind me? That way I'll be close if you have questions, Carl suggested. Oh, I likely will have questions for a while at least. So that will work out fine, Peter replied. Well, Phyllis and I usually open the place at around 9 a.m. So if you want to get here 15 minutes or so before then, you can start then as well. Of course, we really don't have a time clock or anything like that here, since most of your money will be made by the commissions, Carl said. Okay, about 8:45 will work for me, Peter responded. Peter and Carl continued to discuss further details about the job for around an hour or so. As they were wrapping things up, Sarah opened the door to the office and walked in with a paper shopping bag with the 2 cords at the top for handles. The bell rang again as the door swung inward. She was smiling at both Carl and Peter as she stepped inside. Hi Peter and hi Carl, Sarah said, walking toward Peter and Carl, who were still sitting across from each other at Carl's desk. Hello Sarah. It looks like your shopping trip was successful. Oh, by the way, this is Phyllis. She works as another realtor here with Carl, Peter said. It's nice to meet you, Phyllis, Sarah said as she looked toward her. Phyllis, this is my wife, Sarah, Peter added. Nice to meet you as well, Sarah, Phyllis replied from her desk. Has Peter been treating you nice while I was out? Sarah asked. He has been very polite. Carl did forget about me earlier though, Phyllis said with a fake frown. I won't live that one down for a while, Carl replied. Phyllis nodded in agreement. So how was your shopping expedition, Sarah? Carl asked. Great, I found a new outfit at the Pearson store. And I even found out that they can use an extra sales clerk. Not management like my current job, but it'll be a start. So if you do end up taking this job, I should have something to do as well, Sarah replied. Well, I think I do want to accept the position, Sarah. If you agree, I will do so. So what do you think? Peter asked. Sarah smiled and replied, Sure, honey. That'll be fine. I'm glad you are taking the job, she said as she walked over to him. He stood up and they hugged each other for a moment. Since we'll be moving here, you should be able to take the job in the store too. Carl won't have to use all his connections to find you a job either. That's great, Peter commented. Okay, now that you have pretty much established that you two are moving here, did you want to look at some of the available properties now? Carl asked. Oh, sure we can. Though I can wait until you two are done with your stuff first, Sarah replied. You timed it right, Sarah. We finished a few minutes before you returned. The final paperwork will be completed on his first day on the job. We were mostly shooting the breeze when you came in anyway, Carl said. Okay then. I'm ready to look at some houses, Sarah replied. Sarah, please have a seat here, Carl said as he motioned with his hand toward the open chair next to Peter in front of his desk. Sarah sat in the seat and looked at Peter first, then at Carl. To start with, do you have any price range in mind? Carl asked. Well, at least to start, I think we probably would need to keep it under 200,000, until we can talk to a bank for a more accurate number. I think that would be the best guess I could give you now, Peter replied. Under 200,000, huh? Well, that may limit the choices a bit. But I do understand since you two are still young. Even in a small town like this, the property values have been increasing over the past several years. Some people from Lansing have been moving here and that has been driving the prices up some, Carl said. Well, just show us what we can get in that price range and we'll take it from there, Peter replied. Let's see here, Carl said as he scanned some binders on a shelf next to his desk. Carl pulled one of the binders out and opened it onto the desk. It had photos and descriptions of houses for sale in the area. He spun the binder around for Sarah and Peter to view and moved it closer to them. Okay, from this tab to the next one are the listings I have between 150 and 200,000, Carl said pointing to the two divider tabs in the binder. Peter drew the binder over and reviewed the first entry within the range. Sarah looked at the page as well. That one is only 1,100 square feet. Maybe I just haven't been keeping up with real local estate, but I thought 155,000 would buy quite a bit more around here, Sarah commented. Well, that one does have a close to an acre of land with it too, but as I mentioned, inflation hasn't totally missed this area. Just keep looking, and please let me know if you have any questions, Carl replied. Okay, let's keep looking, Sarah, Peter said turning to the next page. That looks kind of small too. Keep paging through, Peter, Sarah commented. Peter turned to the following page. He could see a slight sense of exasperation on Sarah's face with each page with the type of houses they could afford. Sarah, just keep in mind, we may have to get a starter home for now. Build up some equity, and eventually get more of what we both want, Peter commented, trying to head off some of Sarah's concerns. Tell me, Sarah, what type of home are you looking for? Maybe I can sort through some of these a bit better, Carl offered.